Welcome to Hollywood Graveyard, where we set out to remember and celebrate the lives of those who lived to entertain us by visiting their final resting places. Today we're exploring Green Hills Memorial Park, where we'll find such stars as Charles Bukowski, Yokozuna, Boon, and many more. Join us, won't you? Our exploration of cemeteries around Los Angeles brings us to the very southern end of LA County, to the South Bay. Green Hills Memorial Park is in the San Pedro area, not far from Long Beach. From these hills you can see the Port of Los Angeles off in the distance. And if you squint real hard, you might just see the Queen Mary docked in the port. Green Hills was established in 1948 on 120 acres, a partnership between local business and community members to serve the needs of the South Bay. As our radius outside Hollywood expands, we won't find as many stars here as, say, Westwood or Hollywood Forever, but there are a number of notable figures here, so let's go meet some of them. Let's begin our tour following the main road in on the right to Bayview Drive, stopping just past the Archangel statue in the Faith and Hope section. Here lies silent film cowboy Bob Custer, whose real name was Raymond Glen. He came to Hollywood from Kentucky and would soon become one of the more popular Western actors of the 20s, seen in films like The Border Whirlwind and Santa Fe Rides, around 50 films in all. But he found difficulty performing in talkies, and his career dwindled thereafter. By the 40s he retired from acting and lived to be 76, passing away from a heart attack in 1974. Backtracking to the T intersection and Avalon Drive, we find Ocean View section on the right. Up the hill a ways we find the unmarked grave of Glen. During the golden age of film and television, there were few bigger names in sound than Glen. As a sound engineer, he would record sound for hundreds of film and television productions, like I Love Lucy. In 1937, he formed the Glen Sound Company, which would work on the soundtracks to an estimated 20,000 film and television productions over the years, shows like The Andy Griffith Show and That Girl, and films like The Ape Man. In 1960, while visiting his home in New Brunswick, Canada, Glen and his wife were killed in an automobile accident when their car plunged off a dirt road into Newcastle Creek. He was 52. Let's continue up near the top of the hill in this same section. Just a few rows in from the road is figure skater Rhode Lee Michelson. In 1958, she was the U.S. Nationals Ladies Novice Champion and would go on to place second in the U.S. Junior Ladies Championship. In 1961, she was the U.S. Ladies Senior Bronze Medalist, earning her a spot on the U.S. World Figure Skating Team. In February 1961, she was aboard Flight 548 from New York to Brussels, along with the rest of the U.S. figure skating team, to compete in the World Figure Skating Championship in Prague. Tragically, the plane crashed in Belgium, killing all 72 aboard, including the entire U.S. figure skating team, which consisted not only of America's top figure skaters, but coaches as well. It was a devastating loss to the figure skating world. Young Rhode, who had only begun to shine, was just 17. Further east in this Ocean View section, up the hill from Avalon Drive, is the grave of Charles Bukowski, a prolific underground author and poet. The unapologetic, often abrasive Bukowski wrote of the depravity of urban life and the downtrodden in American society. His stories were often somewhat autobiographical, featuring down-and-out writers working odd jobs, living on the fringes of society. One such character was named Hank Janaski, his thinly veiled alter ego, and the anti-hero of books like Ham on Rye and Hollywood. His novel Hollywood fictionalizes his experience writing the screenplay for the film Barfly, which itself is a fictionalized account of Bukowski's life in Hollywood in the 60s to the 80s. Other of his writings would be made into films, including Factotum. Throughout his career, Bukowski wrote thousands of poems, hundreds of short stories, and 6 novels. He summed up his philosophy on art and life with 2 simple words here on his gravestone: don't try. At face value, perhaps a strange and uninspiring message to the world from the grave, but it's not a message of apathy. In his own succinct way, what Bukowski was saying was, don't just try, do. Don't try to be a writer, be a writer, without coercion or commercial ambition. And the boxer between his birth and death dates suggests that life itself is a struggle. Charles Bukowski died from leukemia at age 73. Let's hop back in the car and make our way back around to Bayview Drive, toward the far northeastern corner of the cemetery. Here we find one for you wrestling fans. Close to the wall is the mighty Yokozuna, whose real name was Rodney Anawai. He was a professional wrestler in the 80s and 90s, part of the World Wrestling Federation. He was of Samoan descent and adopted the stage persona of Yokozuna, a reference to the highest ranking of sumo wrestling. Yokozuna was a two-time WWF World Heavyweight Champion, two-time Tag Team Champion, and winner of the 1993 Royal Rumble. Rodney came from a family dynasty of wrestlers, which includes his cousin, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. In 2000, while on an independent wrestling tour of Europe, Rodney Anawai died from a pulmonary edema in his Liverpool hotel room. He was just 34. The mighty Yokozuna was posthumously inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame in 2012. From here, let's head now to the middle of the cemetery, to the Cypress Mausoleum. Let's head into the Sanctuary of the Cross. Low on the wall is the niche of Adelle Davis. She was an author and nutritionist, considered the most famous nutritionist of the mid-20th century. She advocated for improved health through better nutrition, consuming natural foods and vitamins. She wrote 4 best-selling books: Let's Cook It Right, Let's Have Healthy Children, Let's Get Well, and Let's Eat Right to Keep Fit. Over 10 million copies of her books have been sold, which not only helped usher in the health craze in the 60s and 70s, have also helped shape America's eating habits. Adelle died from multiple myeloma at the age of 70. A little farther down is the Cypress section of the mausoleum. Here is the crypt of Don Terry, an actor known for playing the clean-cut American hero on screen. He's perhaps best remembered as Commander Don Winslow in Don Winslow of the Navy and Don Winslow of the Coast Guard. Other films include Squadron of Honor. He didn't only play war heroes on screen. Don was also a decorated war hero in real life, rising to the rank of lieutenant commander and receiving the Purple Heart. After the war, he retired from acting and worked for Starkist Tuna. His wife Catherine was heiress of Starkist. Catherine and Don would use their wealth for philanthropic causes, donating tens of millions of dollars to improvements at universities like USC, the California Museum of Science and Industry, and California Hospital Medical Center. Ergo, you'll see many university and hospital facilities around Southern California named for Catherine and Donald Loker. Continuing along Hillcrest Drive, we reach the Parkview Mausoleum, which bears no small resemblance to a Tuscan villa. Let's follow this outer terrace around to meet John Bubbles, a great all-around entertainer. Born John Sublett, John Bubbles was well known as a tap dancer, actor, and singer of the vaudeville stage in the 20s and 30s. He was half the popular stage duo of Buck and Bubbles, the first black artists to perform at Radio City Music Hall, as well as the first black artists to perform on television in 1936 for the BBC. Bubbles was an innovator of tap, pioneering what he called rhythm tap. As an actor, John Bubbles originated the role of Sportin' Life in the 1935 premiere of George Gershwin's Porgy and Bess. He can also be seen in a handful of films, including 1937's Varsity Show. And when a young Fred Astaire needed tap dancing lessons, he came to Bubbles, whom he considered the finest tap dancer of his generation. Later in life, he would entertain troops on USO tours. John Bubbles died at the age of 84 from a cerebral hemorrhage, and was later inducted into the Tap Hall of Fame. Back the way we came, we proceed now to the upper terrace, to find the grave of Paul Conrad. He was an artist and cartoonist, best known for his political cartoons. In a career that spanned some 5 decades, he skewered those in power and defended the common man in his cartoons. Known particularly for his work at the Los Angeles Times, His cartoons would be syndicated nationwide and commented on social and political issues from poverty to civil rights, the Watergate scandal, and the Vietnam War. Conrad's work would earn him 3 Pulitzer Prizes, and he would continue to produce cartoons right up until his death at age 86. While we're up here, let's go check out the interior of the Parkview Mausoleum. Moving on now to the northwest corner of the cemetery, to the Pacifica Mausoleum. Heading into the North Court, we find the crypt of Charlotte Harris. She was a cellist who played with a number of orchestras across the country, but is perhaps best remembered for her time playing cello as a featured performer on the Lawrence Welk Show. She played with Welk for close to 2 decades, and would also do session music for films like Around the World in 80 Days. Later in life, she taught cello here in the Palos Verdes area, living to be 89. The section just north is the Pacifica Edition. Here we find the niche of actor Lewis Collins. He's perhaps best remembered for his tough guy role of Bodie in the British TV series The Professionals in the 70s and 80s. And his film roles include Sergeant Godley in Jack the Ripper. Around this time, Lewis Collins auditioned for the role of James Bond after the retirement of Roger Moore, but the role went to Timothy Dalton. Collins also had a military career as part of the Parachute Regiment. He died from cancer at age 67. Let's head back into the cemetery now, stopping at Starlight's section on the right. Here is another one for you wrestling fans, Louie Spicolli. He was a professional wrestler in the WWF as Rad Radford, and later in the ECW and WCW as Louie Spicolli. Known for his use of the Death Valley Driver, he was an AWF heavyweight champion, as well as 2-time WWA World Trios champion, with Bill Anderson and Tim Patterson. Louie struggled off and on with drug abuse throughout his life. On February 15, 1998, he overdosed and choked on his own vomit in his sleep, passing away at age 27. He was posthumously inducted into the Southern California Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame. Back to the T intersection, let's take a right onto Green Hills Drive and stop at the Resurrection Slope on the right. Here rests William Joseph Clarke. He was one of the great blues harmonica players, known for his use of the amplified harmonica. William performed in clubs around the Los Angeles area and released a number of albums, including the hit Must Be Jelly. Clarke was just 45 when he died from a bleeding ulcer after a performance in Fresno. Just a hop across the street southwest is the Garden of Reflection. Here lies Pola Illery, real name Paula Gibson. The Romanian-born actress is known for her portrayal of vamps in silent and early talkie films. Her career began in Romania and France, starring in films like Under the Roofs of Paris and Parada Paramount. At the time, she was considered Romania's most exotic star. After making Le Tombeau Hindu in 1938, she fled Europe to escape Nazism and retired from acting. During the war, she worked as a nurse for the Red Cross. Pola lived to be 83. Let's make our way around the wall to the courtyard to the south. Here we find Barbara Slater. Fans of the Three Stooges will recognize her from 2 films of the era, 3 Smart Saps and Half-Wit's Holiday.
Good evening, Miss Lulu.
My, but you look charming.
Oh, thank you, boys. You look charming, too.
She also appeared alongside Charlie Chaplin in Monsieur Verdoux and gave a memorable performance in the film The Lady Confesses. She quit acting in 1947 but spent her later years as a theater and dance instructor for the Pasadena Playhouse. She lived to be 76. Barbara was married to actor Robert Foulk. He had close to 300 credits to his name, including as Mr. Wheeler on Green Acres and Sheriff Miller in the Lassie series. He also made multiple appearances on shows like The Loretta Young Show and Bonanza. Robert lived to be 80. Our next stop brings us to the churchyard. Whereas most of Green Hills follows the Memorial Park style, this little churchyard here calls back to the old school churchyards one would see on the East Coast or back in England. Here in the churchyard we find the grave of Annie Montrose Hagins, who was often credited as Montrose Hagins. As an actress, she's perhaps best remembered for her role as Miss Coretta Jackson in the famous Jet Jackson series and TV movie, and as Grandmother Davis in Homefront. And on film, she can be seen as Grandma Jenks in Coming to America and Bess in Say Anything. Annie didn't start acting until she was in her 60s, prior to which she was an elementary school teacher in Gary, Indiana. She was also a civil rights activist and board member of St. Jude's Children's Hospital. Her exact birth year is disputed, but Annie Montrose Hagins lived into her 90s. Before we move on, let's take a moment to remember those who served their country and communities. For our last stop of the day, we make our way around and north to Lakeview Lawn. Up the hill a short ways is D. Boon. In 1980, D. Boon formed the punk rock band Minutemen, a pioneering group of alternative rock. Boon was singer, songwriter, and guitarist for the band. During their 5-year career, the Minutemen recorded 4 albums and 8 EPs. Among their popular tracks was This Ain't No Picnic.
This ain't no picnic!
And if you're a fan of Jackass, you'll recognize their track Corona as the main theme of the show and movies. The band continued until December 22nd, 1985, when Boon was killed in a van accident in the Arizona desert. He was just 27, another tragic entry in the 27 Club. After the death of D. Boon, the Minutemen disbanded. And that concludes our tour. What are some of your favorite memories of the stars we visited today? Share them in the comments below, and be sure to like, share, and subscribe for more famous grave tours. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next one. Remember me with a smile. May that someday be said of all of us.